Too quick. That's too methodical, too fast. Nothing to it.
I like it?
More interesting. No, we're talking about the kid.
Okay. Let's go. We're on tape. Be careful what you say. Kosav Lezeh. Kosav Lezeh. Kosav Lezeh. You wrote a shchimra, a person who's dying. He wrote over his property over to one person, then he wrote over to another person. Rab says he can't renege on the deal, and the first guy who he wrote it to gets it. Rabbi Abba Bar Chuna and Rabbi Yochanan both said he has the right to renege and take it from the first guy and give it to the second guy. Hey Chavida, what's the case? Let's talk about slaves, says the Gemara. Although it doesn't say explicitly, let's talk about slaves here, but that's the idea. Hoya Rabo Rishon, let's say the first master, the guy who's dying, Vasheni, and the second guy, meaning the first guy he intends to give it to, is Reuven. Reuven owns the slave, right? He's dying. So he gives the slave to Shimon. Both of them are Kohanim. Rishon Vasheni Kohen. Vashlishi, so the third guy, the second one, Reuven reneged on the deal, and then he gave it to Shimon, to Levi, and Levi's Yisro. So that this is going to be the machlokas. To Rav, according to Rav, who says you can't. Once Reuven gave it to Shimon, he can't renege on the deal. Give it to Levi. Yochel lechel b'truma. So he can eat b'truma. The slave belongs first to a Kohen. His original owner was a Kohen. His second owner is a Kohen. He's not allowed to renege on the deal. Reuven's not allowed to renege. So therefore, the slave gets to eat truma. Al das to Rabbi Abba Bar Chuna of Rabbi Yochanan, however, according to Rabbi Abba Bar Chuna and Rabbi Yochanan, who hold that Reuven, the dying Kohen, can renege on the deal and take the gift away from Shimon and gave it to Levi. So according to him, since Levi is Yisrael, Eino yochel lechel b'truma. So therefore, the slave can no longer eat truma. Right? Again, because the machlokas is whether you can renege on the first gift and give it to the second guy, and the answer is that it's a machlokas, and depending on whether the gift can be reneged upon or not be reneged upon, you're going to have these ramifications. Okay? So, says the Gemara further. Hakomodim, everybody agrees. Shimei Rabbo Rishon Yisrael. If the first master was Yisrael, Eino Ochel B'Truma. If the first master, in other words, the guy who gives the gift, Reuven, who's the dying person, is Yisrael, even he gives a slave as a gift to a Kohen, it's a Tamat Nashchimera, we don't let the Eved eat Truma. Why don't we let the Eved eat Truma? Because maybe the master will survive. And if the master survives, so then, in that case, obviously he gets the Eved back, so therefore the Eved never had the right to eat Truma, so therefore, even though he gave it to a Kohen, while he was in possession of the Kohen, he's not allowed to eat Truma.
That's his only slave.
Who's only slave?
The dying man.
Oh, he gave over, no, if he gave over all his property, it's worse, than he for sure can renege. You're talking about if he had other property other than the slave. Yeah, the Gemara doesn't discuss that. You're right. In that case, he wouldn't be able to be chayzebo, so the slave could eat Truma. Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Bone said, Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Bone b'shem Rav Chuna said, Masnis Messiah Rav Chuna Rav Rabba Bar Chuna Rabbi Yochanan. The Mishnah is a riot to Rabbi Rabba Bar Chuna Rabbi Yochanan. Which Mishnah? It says Borish Kosav Daitiki. I don't know if it's a Mishnah or Brisa. It's a Brisa. It's a Masnisa. Masnisa Messiah Rabbi Rabba Bar Chuna Rabbi Yochanan. What does it say in the Brisa? Borish Kosav Daitiki, a well person who wrote a will and testament, or Shchimera, or a person who's dying, Shekasa Matana, who wrote a gift, Chozerbo, he's allowed to renege. A well person can renege on his will as long as the will has not yet. Excuse me. A little bit quieter, please. If in a case where a person wrote a will, right? He wrote a will to and he's well. He's a healthy person. Person wrote a will. Chozerbo, he's allowed to renege as long as he hasn't yet died, because obviously the will only takes effect after he dies. So Bari Shekosov Daitike or Shchimira, or a person who's dying, Shekosov Matana who wrote a gift, a Shchimira Shekosov Matana, or a Shchimira, a person who's dying who wrote a gift, and this gift, even though it takes effect immediately, right? A Shchimira takes effect immediately, the gift takes effect immediately, nonetheless Chozerbo. He's allowed to renege on the deal until he actually dies, and then it takes effect permanently. So in this case, again, I lost my train of thought.
There's no qualifications here if it's all his property or part of his property. Into this.
Well, let's see. Says more again. Masisim Misayele. I'm going back a line because I lost my train of thought. Bryce Misayele Rabbi Abarchun of Rabbi Yochanan. Barish Kosov Daitike, a Bari who wrote a will, Shchimer Shkosov Matana, and a Shchimer wrote a gift. Chozerbo is allowed to renege. Bari Shkosov Daitike Chozerbo, a person who wrote a will, can renege Vlo Od who Bari, meaning as law, even though he's still. Obviously, he's still healthy, and that's why he can renege. Udekavasah, from this we can deduce that similarly, Shchimer Shkosov Matana Chozerbo, that a Shchimer who writes a gift is Chozerbo. What is the scenario? V'lo Odu Shchimera, as long as he's Shchimera. So therefore, just like the Bari can renege on his will, as long as he's still healthy, which is until he dies, so the Shchimera can renege on his gift as long as he's still a Shchimera, which means until he dies or until he gets well. So yes, even if he only wrote a partial gift, that's correct. Even if he only wrote a partial gift so far, he can renege on that and change his mind as long as he's still a shchimira. Okay? Once he gets healthy or once he dies, that's when things are etched in stone. But as long as he's shchimira, he can continuously change his mind in the middle.
So is the distinction between the two is the Bari wrote it down and the shchimira said it verbally?
Well, that's generally the difference. A Bari must write a will in order for the will to have any meaning whatsoever. A Shchimera does not have to write a will. A Shchimera is verbal. There are certain types of transactions which a Shchimera performs, which when he writes them down, have all of the authority vested in them as a true kinyan, which means that the Shchimera cannot renege on the deal. And so here, to simplify matters, we're talking about a case where the Shchimera gave it verbally as opposed to writing it down, so it shouldn't take on the character of a Matnas Bari. Okay?
Really, how do we get into this from
Oh, because we talked about the concept of karka kosher.
If he talks, it's okay. If it's oral.
Yeah, if it's oral, it's okay, for sure. Karka kosher, a small amount of land, is chayv and pay at the same time, and has all sorts of ramifications about gifts of a person who's dying. So yeah, it's kind of off in a tangent, but that's how we got onto it. Okay. Ezug daitike. What is a daitike? Dote l'kayim v'lamod. This should be to stand and to be sustained. Literally to be extant and to stand. V'meis. He knows in the chosin ploni that if the person dies, his property should be given to so and so. That's a daitiki. Ezi matana. What's a gift? I rekon the chasain nesuni ploni where I say all my property should be given to so and so. Matana me'achshav. A gift from now. V'shetehei kosaba me'ayom, and it should write in it from today. Now, in this case, where you wrote in it me'ayom, or the Mepharshim asks what the difference between Me'achshav and Me'ayom is, and I think both of them have the same import. When you write Me'achshav Me'ayom, then it even supersedes the Matna Shchimira. In other words, it's even if the person survives, he loses it. If he writes Me'ayom or Me'achshav, so then the gift is permanent regardless of whether he survives or demises.
Not exactly. It's the land. But not, I mean the...
No. You're thinking about when he didn't write Me'ayom or Me'achshav, but if he wrote Me'ayom or Me'achshav, it means that it should take effect immediately. Then it takes effect regardless of whether he actually whether he actually left himself something or not. Okay?
I thought if he recovered, it would just be the land.
Not where he wrote the term Me'ayom from today or Me'achshav from now. Okay? Says in Gemara, Achsei Rabbi Gurion. Now, assuming that he didn't write that in, actually the Rabbi Gurion, the brother Rabbi Gurion, Kostas L'nichsei La'achua, wrote, his sister Rabbi Gurion wrote all of her property over to her brother. so to one of her brothers. Solak Achua Rabba, her older brother came, Paisa, and started persuading her, because and then she wrote over property to an older brother. I saw you now, then she dropped dead. Questions: who gets the property? I saw Uvda Komi Rabbi Ami. So this Maisa came from Rabbi Ami, Omar, and he said, Hochinam Rabbi Yochanan, this Rabbi Yochanan said, Chozerbo. That's what we said on top of the page, you can renege. So therefore it goes to the big brother, not the little brother. Rabbi Zeir said, Lo Moda Rabbi Yochanan, Shikosabo Me'ayom Sheina Yochel Lachzerbo. Wait, but this is a case where the woman wrote, the deceased sister wrote Mehayom, from today. Oh, you write from today, there's no backseas. So she wrote Me'ayom to the younger brother, that's it. Sheina Yochel Lachzerbo. Asar Rabbi Avo b'shem Rabbi Yochanan. And Rabbi Avo came and said, in fact, the same thing, named Rabbi Yochanan, and Yochel Lachzerbo. You can't renege. Asa Rabbi Law. Rabbi Law, in there I think it says Rabbi Elah. Does it say Rabbi Elah? Yeah, and here it says Rabbi Law. Somebody from Australia wrote me. Somebody learned Yerushalmi. He wrote me that they used to have a shiur, they're now defunct, in which the guy who gave shiur couldn't figure this out for minutes, I should say. But it says he thought it's Asa Rebbe Lo b'shem Rabbi Yochanan. But it's Lo is the guy's name here. It's Rebbe Lo, and that's why there in that shot it says Elah instead of Lo, but it's the same idea. Asa Rabbi Lo b'shem Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Lo came and said, name Rabbi Yochanan, Eino Yochel Lachzer, he cannot renege on the deal. Okay, Rabbi Lo came and said, Eino Yochel Lachzer, once he wrote Me'ayom, V'hana Rabbi Imi, and Rabbi Imi was enlightened by this, V'chozer Uvda, and he returned his psak. In other words, he said that, in fact, all the money here goes to the younger brother, not the older brother, because when she wrote the property over to the younger brother, she wrote Mehayom. Okay? Rav Omar, Rav says, B'mizake ayodeh. Now this is going back to the Mishnah, even though there's no heading here like the Bavli has. This is going back to the Mishnah. The Mishnah said that the halacha is that if a woman accepted even a small parcel of land in lieu of her ksuva, despite the fact that it's not up to the value of her ksuva, she loses her ksuva as a result. That now becomes in lieu of her ksuva, and she doesn't get her ksuva. So Rav Amar b'mizaka there, Rav says it's only. It said all the Mishnah. I should add. I have to add. It said in the Mishnah that it's when she gets a portion with the brothers. In other words, the dying husband / father is apportioning his property. He apportions some property to her along with her brothers. So Rav Amar b'mizaka there, specifically where he appoints her to be the person in control. She's mizaka. He apportions through her because there, since she's achieving some degree of significance as a result, she's moichel, or she is moichel. She is willing to forgo the rest of her ksuva. Shmuel says he doesn't have to actually do she doesn't have to actually be involved in the apportionment, but she does have to be present, and that's to be done in front of her. Rabbi Yosef said this is a kula by ksuva. Obviously, this is a great way for a husband to get off the hook of his ksuva. So it's a kula by ksuva. And so too Bar Kapora said this is one of the kulas of ksuva. Rabbi Ba said, time of the Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Chanina, logic Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Chanina, lo sof davar is not only is so compelling, I should say, that lo sof davar ksuva monam aside. This is not just true where ksuva was only for $100 or $200. El afilu ksuva shel elf dinar. She had an astronomically large ksuva. The moment she accepted a small piece of land for it, tough luck. Mikule ksuva shanokan. This is one of the leniencies of ksuva, that she loses her ksuva as a result.
When is this business with the ksuva that she has to be there?
When he apportions property to all the brothers, all his sons, including her, and he gives her a portion as well. Even though a portion is worth less than her ksuva, she loses the remainder of her ksuva. Okay, next page, 38. Skipping on it here. You to test on base. Hakosim nechasav lavdo. If somebody writes his property to his slave, Yotza ben Chorin, that includes all of his property and includes the slave himself. So slave Yotza ben Chorin. Shia karko koshu. If she left some land, however, lo Yotza ben Chorin. In that case, the slave does not go free. Why? Because we give, according to Tanakama, we give the slave the status of karka, and just like you left some of the karka, perhaps you left the slave as well. Rabbi Shimon Omer Lo'olamu ben Chorin. Rabbi Shimon says the slave is free. Until you say all my property is given over to so and so Avdi, my slave, except for 1/1000th of them. Now the Farshim explained, I got a new parish on Peah, courtesy of Moish Khan, whose uncle wrote the book, Leo Levy, courtesy of Dr. Spadel, who delivered it then to me. But this is this very good sefer on Masechta Peah. So here he says that it's clear that there can be three ways of looking at a slave. A slave can either be looked at as real estate. A slave can be looked at as movable property. And a slave could be looked at as neither, but as the slave. Shocking concept, right? So when you look at a slave as real estate, that means if a master wrote all of his property to a slave, exclusive of some real estate, then that might also exclude the slave, and the slave does not go free, because he's not written over to himself. If you hold a slave as like metaltlin, then if a master retains the right to some metaltlin, to some movable objects, then that would preclude the slave going free, because the slave might be also remainder together with the metaltlin. Rabbi Shimon holds a third thing. Rabbi Shimon holds that a slave is neither. And therefore, in order for us to suspect that the slave is remaindered, the owner would have to write, I'm giving you all my property except for 1/10,000th of it. Well, 1/10,000th doesn't specify whether it's real estate or metaltlin, but in that case, it might be the third category, which is slaves. Okay? And that the Gemara bears out. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yasa b'shem Rabbi Yasa, Rabbi...
It's a chiddush to say that an evidence is a property unto itself.
Yeah, it is a chiddush. Granted.
We never had that in...
No, we never had in Bavli. But the Yerushalmi is in the Bavli, you'll see that also the Kavanaki says here. Says, look at the Gemara's psak here. Rabbi Yasib Shem Rabbi Lezer said, shiur metaltlin lo saklum. If you left over metaltlin, it does not include an eved. Why? I'm sorry. I apologize. Rabbi Yasib Shem Rabbi Yasib says, shiur metaltlin lo saklum. The eved does not go free. Because an eved is like metaltlin. Ani omer gufo shiur. I say the metaltlin which are left over include the eved. So that doesn't work. Uksheba Maisa lifnei Rabbi Yossi, when the Maisa came from Rabbi Yossi, the Rabbi Yasa said his name Rabbi Lezer. Omar said, "Svasayim yishak meishu dvarim nechochim." May lips be kissed which say such beautiful things. So he was paskening that an eved is in fact metaltlin, right? And therefore, if you mishayir metaltlin, that includes the eved. In fact, though, the way we paskin, an eved is what? Who remembers? An eved is karka. That's right. Not like the Yerushalmi.
I don't remember in Bobby
even entertain the possibility. I don't recall if we entertain the possibility, and I think we do. But in any event, oops, sorry. Here's the halach and Shulchan Aruch. We don't paskin like the here's the psak, the Shulchan Aruch here. If somebody wrote all of his property to a slave, the slave goes free because the slave is included property. He acquires himself together with the property. If the person left over some of the property, whether it be karka or metaltlin, whether he specified the remainder or not. Whether the other property or not. If he wrote, I'm giving you yourself and all my property, except for one small thing, so we pass it to shiur no matter what. Whether he left over metaltlin or whether he left over karkos, regardless, the eved does not go free. Okay, which is really like not like anybody here. Essentially, it's not like Tanakama, it's not like Reb Shimon, not like the Gemara. Okay, because we paskin like everybody that any type of shiur that affects the Eved and the Eved doesn't go free. Okay, Hajulach Malbenos. Let's go to the next paragraph. Let's get back to Peah. Mr. Zuger asked about the tangent. Now we're getting back to Peah. Peah must be given connected to the ground.
It's okay, because then the more that I learn, then I
remember it.
Yeah, it's not so bad.
Peah is given when it's connected to the ground. However, if it's a grape which is trellised and it's growing high up in the sky, with a dekel or it's a palm tree, the Baal Bas must take it down and divide up to aniyim. Why is that? It seems like what? He has to go up the tree and get the stuff down for them. They pay it down for them. They don't climb up the tree. It seems that it's because of sakana, because it's dangerous to climb up the tree. So the Baal Bas has to do it. Okay, the Gemara is going to discuss that.
It's dangerous for him too, though.
Yeah, but that's his crop. He's got to do it anyway, right? He decided to grow the crop. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Abi Chilukei Agoizim. This is true even by nut trees. They're also dangerous. Now here comes a very interesting point. Afilu Tisha v'Tisha Aniyim Omrim L'Chalik. Even if 99 Aniyim say, let's divide up equitably, everybody gets the same amount. V'echod Homer Lavuz, and one says, no, let's all race and compete for it. We listen to the one guy out of 100. That's the halacha. There is no equitable distribution by Peah. It's first come, first serve, right? Free for all. However, by trees it's the opposite. Uvedolis uvedekel ain't shoymim. By those uvedekel, probably again because of the danger, we don't listen to him. I feel tishim and tishim and lavuz. Even 99 say we want to race up the trees. The one says to divide down here below. Shoymim. We listen to him, Shomar Kolocha, because here the proper way to distribute it is for the Baal Bas to distribute it on the ground. Okay? Ksiv, it says, how do we learn all this? Ksiv, it says, Lo techala pe'as sodcha. It says, do not cut off or complete the corner of your field. Mikan, from here to derive, Sha'peah niteres m'mechuber l'karka, the peah is given when the peah is still m'chuber l'karka, still connected to the ground. Because it's true even by a tree, a grapevine or a palm tree. Tamulomar, no, because the pasuk says katsir. Ma katsir miyuchad katsir harvest. Ma katsir miyuchad shakatan moishabo. Just like a katsir is that which is a katan, a small person, not necessarily a child, but a small person can harvest, right? In other words, he can grasp the grain and harvest it. Kigado, just like as if he's a large person. Yotzu adalas v'dekel, this precludes a vine, a grapevine, and a palm tree. Sheina katan moshe bo kigado, where a katan, a small person, can harvest, not harvest it like a large person. So if that's the case, we say, when do you leave the peah in the sod? When do you leave it connected to the ground? When it's katzir, when it's grain harvest, or the like. But when it's going much higher, when it's not included in katzir, then you don't leave it in the field. You harvest it first and then give it to the aniyim afterwards. Okay? So if according to this, it sounds like it's doraisa, right? Sounds like learn out for a pasuk. Says the Gemara further, a similar idea. East the boy mishmana minadah. Some people want to learn that from here. Tazov, it says Tazov, leave it. Hanach lifneim, leave it for them. Tvua bikasha, the grain in its stalks. Tilson, a type of flax. Ba'amir in its stalks. Tamarim and dates mechabdos in their clusters. Yochol, is that true? That you leave it there in that situation for Aniyim to get? Yochol, I've v'dolis of a deck. Okay, do I say the same thing is true about a tree? Tamlomar osam. It says only they. Osam is a mute. Only low growing plants. Why do you say only low-growing plants and not high-growing plants? Since the pasuk has one inclusion and one exclusion, I include those which are not a sakana that you leave for the aniyim mechubar karka, that are connected to the ground, and let the aniyim come and take it. And I exclude those shem shel sakana which involve a danger. Now, before we go on, there's a big problem here. The big problem is that it says here that a dekel, you bring it down for the aniyim. But it says, mechabdo shel tzmorim, the clusters of dates you leave up for the aniyim to take. What grows on palm trees? Dates. So which is it? The clusters of the palm trees are the dates. Are you leaving them on the tree for the aniyim to take? Or are you taking it off the tree for the aniyim to get to distribute to the aniyim? So they first give various different answers.
Maybe they cut down the palm itself and they leave the clusters on the palm.
You never cut down the palm. No, it's bad. Then nobody would ever cut down the palm.
A cluster versus individual.
It could be that there's between a cluster and individual dates. It could others say the clusters dangle down when they're large clusters. They dangle down. I think, however, if I recall, that with clusters you can throw, following on your attack, with clusters you can throw clumps of dirt at them and cause them to come down. In fact, Gemara Baba Kama and other places I think discusses that. So you throw things at them, they come down, and that Daniyim can do. But if they're individual dates and they're not growing in clusters, then to go up on top, that the Daniyim don't do, and you cut it down for them. Right. But so So the name, but that is a point here. The question is how to reconcile the two things. Now here comes a very interesting Gemara. This is it's not so much interesting for itself, but rather because it's a case study in how to deal with Yerushalmi. Next Gemara. Mechubar ve'eno mechubar. Now, according to most mefarshim, mechubar ve'eno mechubar means, does it become peah when it's giving them peah off a tree? And you're taking it down, when does it get its shame peah? Does it get its shame peah while it's on the tree, like any other peah? Or does it only get its shame peah when it's on the ground? You hear the question? Does it get its name of peah while it's still on the tree? Does it only get classified as peah once it hits the ground? That would be mechubar ve'eno mechubar. However,
we had similar discussion with respect to the grain itself.
The grain itself, we had similar discussion, right? However, according to the Gra, the gear says mechuvar, double vav, eno mechuvar. And according to the Kavanaki, the question is it the Oraisa or the Rabbana? Mechuvar means something which is clear, and that would imply the Oraisa. Eno mechuvar is something which is unclear, which would imply the Rabbana. And that would, the question for that is whether this halacha that the aniyim don't get on the tree but rather off the tree, is that a Oraisa issue or is that a Rabbanan issue? Be that as it way, what's the nafkamina? Who cares whether it's mechubar, eno mechubar, or mechuvar, eno mechuvar? How to read the Gemara further? So it says Gemara, in teimar korei shem, in teimar mechubar. If you're going to say mechubar, meaning either that while it's on the tree it comes peah, or that it's a din d'oraisa, then korei shem peah l'malon. Now, you can then call it peah when it's on top of the tree. Now, if that works out good, if you hold the girsa of mechubar, then it works out well, right? In Tamar mechubar, if you say that it's mechubar, that you can make a peah when it's still connected, so you give it a shem peah on the tree, l'malon, on the tree itself. But according to the girsa of the Goy, you have to change it here. They have to say in Tamar mechuvar. If you're going to say it's the Raisa, then when does it become peah? Use your thinking caps. If the Raisa, you got to take it off the tree for the guy, for the honey. So when does it become peah? When it's on the ground. So according to the Girsa of the Gra, the Kavanaki changes the Girsa here. It says in Tamar mechubar korei shem peah lematon. Right? Now vice versa. In Tamar ena mechubar, which according to the conventional wisdom is, if you're going to say it becomes peah when it's off the tree, korei shem peah lemata, then of course you call it peah when it's down below. According to the Groz Girsa, it is in Tamar ena mechuvar. If it's going to say it's d'Rabbanan, so then korei shem peah lemalon. Of course, the din d'Rabbanan cannot cancel the din d'Oraisa. And the din d'Oraisa, it becomes peah on the tree. You're going to be machmir because it's sakon and have the balbos take it down, but still becomes peah on top. Now, what's enough mean if it's peah on top of the tree or peah down to below? Who cares? If you're going to say the shem peah is already on the tree, who's got to pay for get the peah off the tree? Who's got to pay?
The owner.
If it's already pay on the tree, the aniyim have to pay for the expenditure of the balbos taking it down. In Tamar, if you're going to say it becomes pay only when it's off the tree, so otzah, then the expenditure is mishal balbais. Okay? Says the truth is, even if you call pay already on top of the tree, it doesn't make a difference. They put the burden upon the balabos that he should pay the expenditure out of his own pocket because of the danger. Okay? Tani b'shem we learn the name Rameir, kol ilano sakona. All trees are dangerous. You never let an ani go up on a tree, even a short one. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Meir lo dorish k'tzir. Rameir didn't dash the word k'tzir, and therefore he said even short trees, even where it's possible for somebody of small stature to harvest, doesn't matter. All trees are dangerous. The balbos has got to take it. What's the type of tree which is chayv? One which you machnis lukim, like grapes and olives. So it says, actually I think I read it, I apologize. I read it wrong. It says more, Rameir lo darish k'tzir, rabbanan darish k'tzir, kama darish k'tzir. All the nation, everybody darish k'tzir. What's Rameir saying? Is a blanket statement that there's no tree which the Aniyim go to collect from? How could this be? Everybody darish k'tzir, which means short trees, should be left up to the Ani to harvest himself. You're right. In the Doraisa, there's no question. Theoretically speaking, there are some trees which are harvested by the balbos, and he gives the pay out of it on his own. There are other trees which the balbos, let me restate that. There are some trees in which the balbos leaves the aniyim the pay on the tree, and the other trees in which the balbos takes the pay off the tree and distributes the aniyim. That's not the Raisa. There must be a dichotomy between kotzir and not kotzir. Rather, Elom Rameir Omar Kol Ilona Sakon. He said the Rabbanon, we regard all trees as being dangerous, and therefore we never let the aniyim go themselves. Rabbanon said, Ain't Sakona Ela Adoli Svadel Kubovad. Doli Sakona is by which is trellised grapevines and by palm trees.
I'm better when I go out.
Right, you're certainly better for entertainment when you get back. Rabbi Chanina b'shem Reish Lakish. Rabbi Chanina is the name Reish Lakish. Ma'aser shemesu chamisha achin. There's a ma'aser. 5 brothers died. B'chamisha chalukei egoizim, with 5 nut trees, which our Mishnah said you leave the pay on the tree. So he is obviously sustaining Rabbi Meir and saying that even nut trees which grow down low to the ground never can tell where somebody's going to die in harvesting them, and therefore the balbos should harvest all the trees. Says Mara, balbais shekara shem peah. If a balbais left peah out in the field, the kila, and he then took away the peah, destroyed it, right? He harvested it. So he transgressed an avera. Lo sechal koreani alav, lo sechal piasor chobukuzrecha. Do not destroy your field and its harvest. In other words, he transgressed that law he designated the peah. He transgressed the law of destroying the peah. What about lokara shem peah? If he didn't call Peah. In other words, he didn't designate Peah. The Kila and the eradicating and he shored his field down without leaving Peah at all. He never even designated it. So according to the Pashup shot in the Yerushalmi, same person. Whether he designated Peah or not, he transgressed the Avera. But the Kavanaki has a girsa here. His girsa is Lo Kora Shem Peah V'Kila. If he didn't designate Peah and eradicate it, then in that case he transgresses the Seifa of the pasuk. It's not a girsa in Yerushalmi; it's a perush in Yerushalmi. He transgresses the Seifa of the pasuk. Says Lo Ani V'Lager Tazov Osam. It says, and we know the Yerushalmi very often, even when it means to quote the end of the pasuk, just brings the beginning of the pasuk. So Yerushalmi is saying, the Kavanaki, if you designate Peah and then didn't leave it, that's called Lo Sechali, you transgress the law of Lo Sechali Peah Sodcha B'Kutrecha. If you didn't designate Peah at all, then you're transgressing the mitzvah Saseh of Lo Ani V'Lager Tazov Osam, leaving it to the poor person.
So what's the difference?
When you get malchus from, when you don't.
You designate and you don't give.
The truth is you won't get malchus anyway because you can make restitution. The question is if you transgress. The question is whether you may we give you transgress the lo saseh or not say. Okay, says the Gemara. Hitnu beineim. What about they made a deal and they said, listen guys, all that made a deal said the Ambas and said, yeah, Reb Yid, Reb Baal Abbas. We made a deal. We want to climb up the trees. Ain't shomim line. We do not listen to them. Oh, I'm not sure. I'm sorry. That's not the exact trace. Not the exact case. They made a deal that they didn't want to go up the trees. But what's the Baal Bayit supposed to do when he takes this off the trees? He's supposed to take the stuff off, the fruit off, and distribute it evenly down below. That's all they need. Let's say they said, you know what, you, Reb Baal Abbas, you go up on the tree, and you throw it down. And we'll grab, because grabbing is the way to go, right? We said in the Mishnah, grabbing is the way to go do with the Peah. So don't give it to us, distribute it evenly, throw it down, and we'll go first come, first serve. And we'll trample over each other, and we'll have fun doing it. Ain't shomim lam, says the Gemara, we don't listen to them. Ela Ba'abai Sichal B'Yoda Ba'Abbas should distribute it evenly. Why? Shema Yira Lo Ani Midai to V'Yash L'Fanav. Because maybe he'll say one ani, he'll say, oh, I like that ani. And then when he starts throwing the fruit, start throwing it all at him. So therefore, in order to prevent such abuse of the system, a la Chicago style, so therefore we make him come down and distribute it evenly. Similarly, Rabbi Shmuel Bar Rav D'Choima, boy asked, Kilo as Sadeu, a person cut down his whole field. He didn't leave Peah out in the field. So Chazer Peah lo Morim. In that case, we know he gives Peah from the sheaves, right? In that case, Afilu Kain, Afilu is a little bit difficult, but I mean, even in this case, Baal Bayis has to distribute evenly. He can't just throw it out and say, here guys, come and take. Why? Because there too, Shalo Yira Lani Midai to V'Yash in front of him. He might see an ani he likes and throw a whole sheaf in front of him. So in this case also, where he forgot and didn't leave the Peah in the field, when he distributes it from the sheaves, he's got to distribute it evenly. Okay? Says the Mishnah further. Yeah.
That the Peah starts on those palm trees, it starts, it's Peah automatically up there. He designates, right?
Yes.
So it's different than on the concert when he has to plow.
Well, I assume he has to harvest the first. No, I assume he has to harvest the first fruit here before he can designate Peah.
So
He has to harvest some before leaving the others as Peah. One fruit. Yeah. One olive, one grape. Okay. Says the Mishnah further. Not out mixas hapeah. Now you have an ani who's a sword. I don't know. I'm not sure how to describe him. He wants to get a lot of peah. He's greedy. That's the word. Right. Thank you. Not a peah. Hard word, right? Not a mixas peah. He took a little bit of peah. The ani took a little peah. V'zarek al shar. Right? He had one sheaf of peah and he said, He saw a whole bunch of other pay. He threw it on and said, "Now it's all mine." I claimed it by throwing the one the Shiva already gathered on it. Ain't lo klum. Lo klum. Not only there are more Yerushalmi tapes over there. If you want. To Brachos Daf 8. Oh, you're going nice and slow.
Brachos Daf 15.
Oh, 15. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Well,
Okay. Here we have a spare. Not to meet the pay of Zarko Shar. Ain't lo baklum. We're in Peah Daf Chof Aleph.
oh, you're past Brachos.
Yeah, we're way past Brachos. Again, not to meet the pay of Zarko Shar. He took a little bit of pay and threw it on the rest. Ain't lo baklum. We take away from him everything, even the pay he had to begin with. It doesn't take away from him. Naflo, the Gemara is going to discuss that. Naflo, similarly, if he fell on the pear, he died on the pear. Appears so he spread his towels on it. We take him away from it. Same thing applies by leket, forgotten pears, isolated pockets of grain. So too by forgotten sheaves. Only somebody has less than 200 zuz.
That's the definition of money?
That's the definition of money. They have to show they're 1040. They have to have less than 200 zuz. Okay? I'm sure the Gemara will get to later on. Time share may we learn the name right there. Like I said to you, we take away from him or even that which he already harvested and that which he now threw his stuff on. I could do amazing. Till now we only maze it. But the truth is it's true even shogeg. It's true even by shogeg, vafilu krichos. And even the stuff that you already bundled, we take everything away from him. Since he acted in a greedy fashion, we sock it to him, we take everything away.
This is what he already gathered on his own.
This is what he really gathered on his own, that's right. Okay?
Take it with his hands.
Yeah. Let me just... Yeah, let's take it piece by piece. Let me just show. Okay. Tani B'Shem Meir. We just did, sorry. Reb Shin Lakish B'Shum Arba Koin Bardlo said the following. Autumn Zoichel Chaveiro B'Mitzia. A person can, if I see a lost object, and I want to acquire it for you, I can do so. However, there's an important line missing here, which I think is in the Rosh Hashanah and is certainly in the Kavanaki. Autumn Zoichel Chaveiro B'Mitzia. Thank you. As long as the Mitzvah is in 4 Amos. This is a very interesting kinyan. Let's talk about Mitzvah, the kinyan of Arba Amos.
Is it kinyan Arba Amos? Is that a kinyan Chatzar?
It's only a kinyan D'Rabbanan.
But Arba Amos, the reason why isn't the reason why you can kona something because I'm just asking you, not that makes it different.
We don't know exactly why Arba Amos works. The Bavli makes it the takona D'Rabbanan. The Bavli
from the concept of a kinyan Chatzar.
It could be comes from Chatzar, but it's not. It's the Gemara itself doesn't make that logic. It might be I think Taisus there says that logic of Chatzar, if I'm not mistaken. But the Bavli itself does not bring down logic of Chatzar. This is all off the cuff, but I'm pretty sure that the Gemara itself does not bring down logic of Chatzar. But here it sounds like it's Daraisa, because we bring that pasuk here, which the Bavli does not bring down. It's a difficult pasuk. But the pasuk is David HaMelech is talking to Shlomo before his death, and he's telling him, he's giving him his last will and testament, part of which appears in Malachim. This is from Divrei Yomim. He says, "Vani be'oni," I in my poverty, and that's going to be the critical word. I in my poverty, hachinoisi lebeis Hashem, I prepared for the house of God. Zav kikarim me'elef, 100,000 kikarim of gold. The kesef elef halofin kikarim, and silver thousands upon thousands of kikarim. And for copper and for bronze and mishpach. There was no weight, above and beyond any weight and measure. Kilo rovaya, because there was very much. Veitzim ma'avoni machinosi. I prepared wood and stone as well. Faleyav tosif. And when you build a Beis HaMikdash, you should add on that. In other words, I have treasures stored up for the Beis HaMikdash, for building the Beis HaMikdash. Use those and tack on. Okay?
What are they putting on the basement? What is it?
All the treasures which David collected.
Yeah, and they don't have it now?
What do you mean?
Everything that he collected, yeah.
No, David had it, and he's telling Shlomo collect more.
Yeah.
That's all.
They
That's
hide
supposed
them
to.
or anything?
No. They're used.
Okay.
They're gone. Don't get any ideas.
They'll come
Now,
back.
someday.
Is this different than Zachladim Shlo B'Fanav? Is this whole discussion here too?
Yeah, Zachladim Shlo B'Fanav is when I own something already. In other words, if I own a pen and I want to be mezakeh to somebody, but here I don't own the mitzvah. The chiddush is I can to take a mitzvah which I don't own and be mezakeh to somebody else. Now the thing is, the question is, so how do we learn from this pasuk? Everybody has grave difficulties. How do we extrapolate from this pasuk the concept of Kinyan Dalet Amos? So the thing is, the question is how David got this property. David got this property in war when he conquered other lands. Yet David called himself an ani. So the Gemara says, wait a minute, how can he be an ani? He just has all these property, right? So the Gemara says, Gemara's deducing, he must have been makdish the property as he was acquiring it. So he never got enriched by it. How could that work? It must be that if you're within our Dalet Amos of the property, you can be makdish it to the Beis HaMikdash, but by the principle of mezakeh odem etzil chavero. He was mezakeh these things to the Beis HaMikdash. So the Gemara doesn't buy that though. Yes.
Except there's a separate problem. That if it's Dalet Amos and it's based upon king, Chutzer, the rule is that hektish, the chasam mitam yad and ein yad lehektish. So that wouldn't work for hektish.
It wouldn't work for hektish if chutzer mitam yad.
Right.
No, it would work anyway. That means hektish itself has no chutzer, but you can make your chutzer work for hektish.
Where does the Dalet Amos come in?
You can make your chutzer work for hektish. That's a mezakeh mitzvah to the
Where does the
hektish.
Dalet Amos
The Dalet Amos, that's what the Yerushalmi is assuming, that David acquired it through the kinyan of Dalet Amos. When he came to 4 amos of each piece of gold, he was mezakeh to the Beis HaMikdash. That's the logic. So it says Gemara, Rav Yeshua said, wait a minute. Rav Yeshua, boy, we can ask. What are you talking about? If it wasn't David's Dalet Amos, Oshiru. So he became rich because it became his first. If it's outside the Arba Amos, it's not yet his. How can he be makdish it? V'kaimunu, so says Rabbi Yeshua, basically what we said before. Now the Gemara is really just expounding on the issue. V'kaimunu, we sustain the concept, but makdish rishon, as each of the objects came into his Dalet Amos, he was makdish and therefore he never became rich. So interesting. From the word pasuk here, we learn Kinyan Dalet Amos is like a deraisa. The Gemara rejects it. Rabbi Yom said, Ma'u b'ani, don't think David really was poor. You're saying that since David called himself poor, it must be he himself was never zoich in this money. Says the Gemara, David was rich anyway. He was filthy rich. He was a king. So what? But why does he say b'ani? Shein hashir slifnei misham arva'ei olam. How could somebody, a bus or a dumb, a human being, say I'm rich when he's talking about building stuff for God? So it was a sign of humility David was expressing. He wasn't revealing his balance sheet to Shlomo. He was expressing himself as a humble person. Another interpretation, David used to fast a lot. Turn the page. David used to fast a lot. He used to give a sudas Shemaim. No, it's not that he, and our ani means not that he was poor, but rather that he afflicted himself. He knew him. He underwent afflictions in his service of God. Okay. Rabbi Yaakov Barayidi b'shem Reish Lakish. Rabbi Yaakov asked the name of Reish Lakish. What's Ninon? Didn't we learn? Somebody saw Metzia, and he fell upon it. Somebody else came and grabbed it. It says the second guy gets it. It's a kasha. Because if you say Arba Amos a koine, how can the second guy take it? Second guy's not taking it. The first guy got it was Dalet Amos. So it says this comes back to your concept of chotzer. This time about case we didn't say I want to be zochel through Arba Amos. Arba Amos requires a conscious decision. Otherwise, ain't dover soif. Every time I come within 4 Amos of something, which is hefker, it should be mine. Arba Amos requires a specific cognition and statement that I want to use Arba Amos. So therefore, if I come and I want to fall on something, there's no kinyan of falling on something. I could have used Arba Amos had I called it. But I don't call Arba Amos by falling on something. I don't make a kinyan. Somebody else can come and grab it out from under me.
Doesn't every
literally
kinyan imply intent, though?
Excuse me?
Doesn't every kinyan have to? How can you have a kinyan of something without it?
One could make a chotzer, be kind for himself, anything which enters the chotzer, even without expressly saying, I want to use the chotzer for that. Well, actually, you're right. It has to be used with intent. I take that back. Yes, every kinyan is like that.
Yeah.
It's probably, you're right. It's not necessarily that great a chiddush. That's true. So says the Gemara, Vatani, another case, and this will have the same answer. Vatani, we learn in our Mishnah, Nafla left, he only falls and it appears to Lisa Lea, or he spreads his towels on him, Avirna, so we take him away from it. Amalei Odhi, so he said that's also a case. Shalom, I used to be Arba Amos. We didn't say I should be Zochel with my 4 Amos. Vatai Rebbe Chia didn't Rebbe Chia say, Shtaim Shim Miskatchin Omer, 2 people who were fighting over an Omer, a sheaf, Uvani Acher, and a third one he came cut from his name, and he grabbed it out from one of them. Zochabo, he was Zochen at the third guy. Amalei said, Odhi, so that's also. Shlomai, Yuskuli Arba Amos. So neither one of these guys who was fighting over it said, I want to get it, we can be Zochel my Arba Amos Shali. Rabbi Yochanan said, interesting thing. Zu begitten. Arba Amos works by gitten. In other words, if a get falls within 4 Amos of a woman, it's hers. Mashekim matana. You can't give a matana through the vehicle of Arba Amos. Interesting concept. In a chotzer, yes, but not in his Arba Amos b'reshus harabim. Because by get, you have to convey it to her. That's considered to be conveyed to her. By matana, he has to acquire it. There's no acquisition of Arba Amos by matana. It's a fascinating concept. This really indicates it's the Rabbanon.
It doesn't make any sense.
No, it makes sense.
Pasuk though, forget it says biyada, v'nosna biyada, in her hand.
Yes, there is.
But also,
So
if he's doing it in her yard.
Biyada we're learning here means in her jurisdiction.
Yeah.
That's what it means. Yeah, you're right. It's a big chiddush. This is not a small chiddush. This is a big chiddush.
If we're saying it works for get, how could it not work for matana?
What?
What I don't understand is how could it work for get and not matana?
There's a famous thesis on that, and in Gittin, I forgot just what he says. Give me a Gittin. It's Gittin I
We talk about it too.
Yeah.
You can throw it by her, and it's good enough. If it's close, for a get.
Yeah, by get it has to be just closer to her,
Yeah.
even without the vehicle of Arba Amos.
Condition. Yeah.
And I forgot what Tosa says, but I think he says something explaining it.
I'm doing better when I read out, I'm telling you. This is terrible.
Shouldn't he be outside the whole time?
This way I don't go to sleep. Look at it this way, I don't go to sleep this way. I fall asleep.
Yeah. Tosa says it has to be a place where she can be shomer it. Where she can be shomer it, considered yada even chutz la'arba amos. First Tosa on getting dafayin chesem base. So it's a din in shmira, not a din in dalad amos. That's what Tosa says there. Okay? If it's within her chotzer, or if it's in the dalad amos, then you might not need to have a din of shmira. If it's outside dalad amos, work by shmira. But Rabbi Yochanan's main emphasis is that it doesn't work by matana. It only works by get. Okay? So it says the Gemara. Now here the Girs is messed up again. What? More will distinguish. Says let's look at the Ridbaz here. The Ridbaz, you might have the right Girs in there anyway because it's the Rashi Releu. Now I'm going to read the Ridbaz here. The Ridbaz is a small print on the right margin. Amar Rabbi Yochanan Zubagiti Mashegi Matzana, Ruba the Rabbi Yochanan, Ruba the Reish Lakish. There's a Chiddush of Rabbi Yochanan which goes against the Chiddush Reish Lakish. What is that? Ruba de Reish Lakish. The Chiddush Reish Lakish is Mai Metzia she'eno zocha b'midas acheres, a Metzia which doesn't work with somebody else's My Metzia she'eno zocha b'midas acheres. There's nobody else giving it to you. Okay, nobody else gives you the Metzia, but you find it. Nonetheless, Dawud Amos zocho slow. Nonetheless, a person's Dawud Amos work for him according to Reish Lakish. Matana shezoiche b'midas acheres. A matana is superior. A matana is somebody else who's giving it to you, right? So kol shekain, certainly it should. Well, kol shekain should certainly work with Arba Amos. So Reish Lakish's perspective is that, hey, I said by Metzia it works, right? By Metzia, one person is acting. It's harder to affect the kidney where one person is acting on his own. Yet nonetheless, I say Dawud Amos works. Certainly that should be the case where somebody else is being maknet to me by matana, that Arba Amos should work for me. Okay, logic. If by Metzia, which is harder to enact because there's only one person in doing everything on his own, if that case Arba Amos works, certainly where two people are involved, a giver and a recipient, then Dawud Amos should work as well. The Das Acheres should make it better, not worse. That's Reish Lakish's perspective. Excuse me? Not according to this. Look what Rabbi Yochanan says. Rabbi Yochanan says, I hold the exact opposite. Ruba Rabbi Yochanan of Rabbi Yochanan is Ruba means Chiddush. My matana shezochma midas acheres. If by matana, where there is somebody else giving it to me, ein ezoich mitoch Dawud Amos. Dawud Amos doesn't work. Metzia she'eno zoch midas acheres. A metzia where somebody else is not giving it to me, lo koshkein, certainly Dawud Amos doesn't work. So, and you see, it's both have different starting points, and both come to the opposite conclusions. By get, they all agree it works because it's a din of mishtamer. But by matana metzia, it's a big machlokas. Rabbi Yochanan says it does. Rabbi Yerushalmi says it works even by metzia, where it's one person doing it on his own. Certainly works by matana where two people are involved. Rabbi Yochanan says the exact opposite. By matana it doesn't work, even though there are two people involved. Certainly by metzia it doesn't work as well. So they argue by both matana and metzia. That's what it comes out. Okay. Says well, now again, this really makes sense only if you would say it's all d'Rabbanan. Okay. And let's go now to the top of Chav Beis Amud Aleph, which is where we pick up in the Gemara. Hey, see Rabbi Zira kami Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Zira has in front of Rabbi Yossi. V'atina chelin and kiddushin. Wait a minute. You said by matana it doesn't work. Kiddush is like a matana, and it says that by kiddushin Dawud Amos works. The woman is zoiche in the ring as long as it was thrown into a Dawud Amos. Amar Leis, he said he kiddushin. There's a special linkage made. A gzeira shava between kitten and kiddushin, so whatever works by get works by kiddushin. So that's a special case. V'atanina, didn't we learn? We learned that if I owe you money and I throw the money at you and lands in your Dawud Amos, that I'm yotze repayment. So if I can be yotze repayments by throwing it into your Dawud Amos, I should certainly be allowed to give a gift. The gift should take also effect if I throw into your Dawud Amos. Oh, it's Shusa Rabim, right? Amar Lei, so he said, that's different. Because there, it's as if the lender said to the borrower, throw it into the sea and I'll be mochel you. In other words, the lender doesn't have to receive the exact money back in his hand. He has to come to an agreement with the borrower that if the borrower does X, Y, Z, the loan will be canceled. So therefore, when the money is thrown into the Dawud Amos of the lender, it doesn't necessarily mean technically the lender acquires it. All it means is that the lender agrees to cancel the debt under that situation. So that's no raya to our case. Could be my matana didn't work. Because my matana, there's no such thing as the recipient saying, I agree that under those conditions it's as if I received it. There's no din in mechila on receiving a gift. But here the mechila works. Says, well, if that's the case, mi'ato, if that's the case, afilu korv l'loive zachal loive. If that's the case, Even if it's falls closer to the borrower, let the borrower be off the hook. Zacha meaning let him be off the hook. V'atin, we learned that's not true. Then we learn karav l'loiveh, chayav aloiveh. If it falls closer to the borrower, then the borrower still owes the money. Shekeni marmar leizakei what shekon no. Says word that's of course different. Shekeni marmar zakei what shekon is rishusi v'atayin le'ol nichnas b'shusi. This time out the case where I said throw it into my possession, you didn't throw it into my possession. That's why it doesn't work. Rabbi Avo said, Koli lane hatuvta. Dav Rabbi Zira Musif Kumi Rabbi Yasa. All these questions which Rabbi Zira asked him for Rabbi Yasa. Reish Lakish Musif Rabbi Yochanan. Reish Lakish holds Zaramas works by Matana. Asked in front of Rabbi Yochanan. Mekabel Minei Rabbi Yochanan received all these questions from him. Partly Bilim B'Shnai, and he gave the same responses. So the Lamaisa comes out that according to this Gemara, that Rabbi Yochanan never conceded this point, and therefore you cannot acquire a gift with the kinyan of Arba Amos. One thing, I said it works for Rishus HaRabim. Not accurate. It works in a public domain, but not a Rishus HaRabim mamish. It has to be like a simta, an alleyway, or a common courtyard. Harmless, but not a full Rishus HaRabim, because there nobody has the right to assert their use of Arba Amos, at least according to the Bavli. Okay? Alright, we'll stop here for today. Everybody should have a good Yontif. Today's blot, by the way, is, I believe, Chav. Maybe Chav today was Dalid Sivan, and today's blot is Chav, so we're still a little bit ahead, although we will lose it all over Shavuos. What? That's it for this week. That's it for this week.
What were the two requirements of payos? Was davar niskayim?
Machnisa l'kiyum and also harvested all together at one time. L'kitaso kachas.